being at a university that I really wanted to be at, and then being asked to leave because of what was going on for me. When that happened, I started isolating, and then after a while, the isolation just became a point where I wasn't leaving my room, and I stayed there for honestly years.
People need to decide, because a lot of times people are like, yeah, I want to get better, but it comes with like constraints.
I'm not broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed, but there's something off balance within me, within my nervous system that I do need to address, and I'm in charge. So when I was able to step into that in my 30s, it was like I was starting over again. So it was like I was 18 again when I was like 31, 32. Like, okay, now what?
Whoa. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I have one of the enrollment coaches at Bye Bye Panic. I have Robyn here. She is a rock star, and I'm so glad to have her on the channel. When people apply for the mentorship, she's one of the enrollment coaches that you most likely will talk to, or one of them that you will be speaking to. And I just thought, why not bring her to the channel, have her share her story, and share her experience in seeing people recover. Because Robyn has a very interesting vantage point, which is she sees a lot of people struggling, and she also gets to see them get better. So she sees people at their lowest and how the recovery journey looks like. So I asked Robyn if she could join the channel, and here she is. Robyn, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to chat about all of that today.
Can we know a little bit about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your background and, everything?
Yeah, all right. Well, one of the things people notice about me very quickly is that I'm Canadian, because I will often say A on the calls when I'm asking questions. So I'm Canadian. I'm born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, and I'm somebody that had a very long anxiety journey, which was actually a really big part of my sort of personal development journey and led me on so many beautiful twists and turns throughout my life. So I actually accredit that experience for a lot of wonderful things that have happened to me. All of the training and studying that I've done in personal development and psychology since then. I'm married. I have a wonderful husband. And actually, that's a big part of my anxiety story too, because for me, the anxiety affected my relationships so much that I struggled in relationships for years and years. And my anxiety was always this thing that really made it difficult for me to have a successful relationship. So in recovery, that was one of the beautiful outcomes for me, was that when I really felt solid in myself, I attracted this amazing relationship into my life. My biggest passion really is, like, I know this might sound corny and cliche on this channel, but it really is working with people and helping people find their inner authority and their inner trust. I also work separately as a coach here in Canada for women, and I help women with self-love and confidence as well. So that's a big part of my work that I do too in the world. I pretty much struggled with anxiety from, I'd say, around 15 to 30, pretty seriously. Not, intense the whole time, but there was about 10 years in there that were very, very difficult for me. So yeah, I know what it's like in the beginning, and I also know what it's like when you're in recovery and you really feel like you get your aliveness back. So it's exciting to see people do that. It's also inside of our program.
Yeah, when you joined the program, I was like, you picked up things so fast, and I was just so blown away by how quickly you picked it up and how aligned it was for you. The audience, and I would like to know a little bit more about your anxiety, experience and journey, and what exactly happened and how that looks.
Yeah. So one of the things that was interesting about me was that I was diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder at a really young age. When I was 13, 14, it was in the summer when I had my birthday. And that was a big part of my mental health struggles. But what a lot of people know who have just kind of gone through anything like an eating disorder, body dysmorphia, depression, anything like that, is that once you get better, you look at your life around you, and often what has happened is there's been an impact on your life. And for me, that impact, there were costs for me academically, there were costs for me in my relationship. And when I started to feel better about my body, I kind of looked around at what had happened when I was struggling, and my life in many ways had been really impacted. And then I developed anxiety, because I looked at the ways that especially my academic track had been affected by this. It was really hard to sort of deal with that secondary impact for me. And the anxiety came from like, well, how do I rebuild now? And what am I supposed to do? And all of these impacts, especially relationships for me, it had really impacted my relationship with my family. And of course, my family is incredible and they love me, but there was still, I guess you could say, just baggage, like baggage I had to clean up. And I didn't know really how to do that. I was just getting my footing and sort of learning how to love myself again. And I'd had a major academic failure in terms of being at a university that I really wanted to be at, and then being asked to leave because I wasn't doing well enough academically because of what was going on for me. When that happened, I didn't know how to find solid ground, and I became completely overwhelmed with intrusive thoughts. And the big one for me was agoraphobia. I started isolating. And then after a while, the isolation just became constant panic, constant intrusive thoughts, and just more and more isolation to the point where I wasn't leaving my room. Maybe I would go to the washroom, grab some food, but then always come back to my room. And I stayed there for honestly years. And I really had to rely on the support of family when I saw all my friends going on to do master's level education, building lives, getting married, having families. I was just becoming more and more and more isolated, really struggling with anxiety. And that was so challenging for me because I had been someone that was really proud of sort of the academic path that I was on. I was really, really proud of the person that I had been before, and I didn't know how to find my way again. And then, of course, all the intrusive thoughts with, body dysmorphia is very complicated. So for me, it was like anxiety about my body dysmorphia and then the body dysmorphia. And it's like, which came first, anxiety or body image? And who knows, right? Because mental health is complex. Back then, I'm 43. I just turned 43 a few days ago. So back then, the internet was a totally different place. Access to education and really understanding what was going on was more challenging. Even practitioners and therapists were just starting to, at that time, really work with the nervous system in the way we do now. So I didn't have access to this. So for me, it was just medication and try to let it go. And even, my parents who love me so much, my dad would joke and he'd have this thing where he'd say, LU, like lighten up. And my dad is so loving. But this idea of just lighten up and let it go, as we know, it doesn't work. So while I felt loved and supported and had a great relationship with my dad, I couldn't let it go. And so, through years and years of complex work with therapists and trying different medications and having, a little bit of forward motion and then 2 steps back and learning how to get out of the agoraphobia, but still struggling with the panic. And, for me to be able to really tell you my whole story, we'd have to be here for like 5 hours because, as people know, anxiety is complex. So for 10 years, it was sort of like 1 step forward, 1 step back, having good days, bad days, having sort of setbacks. And there were beautiful moments in there. There were ways that I reclaimed my career without a degree and went and worked for the Canadian government and tried to find a way to move myself forward and be proud of what I was doing, and ways I found, relationships and friends and hobbies and all these things. But it was a dark time. And eventually, when I started working with a practitioner who was really focused on the nervous system and actually really getting to the root cause and actually being able to feel the sensation and go into it and really understand what's going on, I got better very quickly. And for the people around me, it was sort of like, whoa, you're this like big drama queen that always has problems. And now all of a sudden things are going better. Like, what are you doing? And so that was very cool. And it was really being able to get to the root cause of it. I was also someone that was really into personal development throughout all of this time. I was really seeking to find an answer on how to connect to myself and how to love myself. And so the willingness, and this is what we talk about in the program a lot, is there has to be something intrinsic that's coming from within, where you have to really be like finding that grit, that courage, that something inside that's just stronger, that really motivates you to really show up for yourself. And I think I always had that and kept pushing for that. So eventually, through all sorts of like retreats and programs and working with therapists and working with my nervous system practitioner and all of this, I was able to get off the medication. I was able to find a new path in life in terms of studying neuroscience and becoming a nervous system practitioner myself and a trauma integration practitioner, studying as a coach, and then continuing my spiritual journey in that way, where eventually I sort of realized not only do I not really struggle with anxiety, but I actually feel really stable and really good. And it sort of happened slowly over time. But in my 30s, it was like I was starting over again. So it was like I was 18 again when I was like 31, 32. Like, okay, now what?
It resonated so much where you were talking about like how in your 30s, you struggled and it feels like, you were a late bloomer.
Yeah.
I felt like that too.
Yeah.
Like I was like, it wasn't until maybe I was like probably literally 28, 29, maybe even 30, where I
Hmm.
was like, okay, now like, life,
Yeah.
because I'd been struggling for so long. And then, I kind of look back at it. I was like, no, that was just part of the education.
Yeah.
Like my 20s were education. It's really interesting. I had a lot of friends that like had a lot of fun in their 20s, and now like, they're in their 30s, and they kind of wish they would have put in some more work in their 20s. And then I feel like there's people like me, on the other hand, that like went through something difficult, but in a lot of ways it was education. I felt like I kind of lost my 20s, but now like I'm gaining the benefits of all of that in my 30s. So when you
Totally.
say that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I reframed it like that, I was like, oh no, this was just part of the education. Like
Hmm.
I just needed to go through this so that I could do what I'm doing right now. And I always felt like I had to catch up with my
Yeah.
friends at the time. I felt like I was always behind. And
Mhm.
looking now, we're like all exactly where we need to be. And it was
Mhm.
like it never mattered. Like none of that mattered. I was curious with your nervous system practitioner, what are the similarities and differences you see from that and in the program?
A lot. And that was what really drew me to want to work with this program, because it's like there's such a nuance between sort of this idea of just like, in some moments, the tool is that we just need to, like, I don't want to use the word ignore it because that's not quite right, but we do need to just focus on living our life and moving forward. And in some moments there is, and we have to learn that nuance. In some moments, actually allow the sensation, like move through it, let it move through your body, and learning that nuance of when it's time to throw it under the umbrella and trudge forward, and when we actually need to have a tool or a framework to work with. And that nuance I've noticed is a big part of the Bye Bye Panic program, that really resonated for me. But also too, when I first came on board and I was studying to support people on these calls and I was reading the blueprint, I was like, oh, this is like verbatim exactly what my
Really?
my workbook looked like. And one of the things, when we speak to people that have some of these more challenging symptoms, when everyone thinks of anxiety, they think of the common, like they think panic attacks, they think the sympathetic arousal. And our folks that fall into the parasympathetic that have a little bit more of the DPDR, or some of these things where it's a little bit more of that immobilization. It's under talked about. So sometimes people think, well, this isn't for me. And I think once you know how to map the whole system and you understand what's going on, you can really see, oh, actually, it all fits under the umbrella of anxiety and it makes sense. So that really resonated with me too, because I was going through it. I was like, oh, this is so similar. Because I had all these worksheets that this was back in the days, of course, it was all printed out in a binder that I was handed, but it was like understanding like the methods and mechanics of somatic experiencing and how they help you go through and understand the nervous system. So yeah, there's a ton of similarities. And like I said, that's what made me feel like, oh yeah, this is the right place for me, because I so proudly represent this work because I really believe in it. And so when I saw what you were up to, I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of this and help people.
That's exactly why you picked it up so fast because I was
Yeah.
like, yo, she really gets this. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people, because here's the thing, there's a lot of people that try to work with us that are like, oh, I know about anxiety. Oh, when you're nervous,
Yeah.
do box breathing and stuff like that. And like, it's like, no, 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 there's so much more deeper
Yeah.
stuff. And, you picked it up so fast. And I was like, how did you do that? And like, how'd you pick it up? And you're like, oh, I went through this.
Yeah,
I
I
was
went
like,
through this and
whoa.
I studied this, and
Yeah.
that was a big part of what I studied too, because my experience with it was so wonderful. When I studied to be a trauma integration practitioner, I studied somatic attachment therapy and all these things. So the anything somatic is the brain. Anything neurosomatic is the brain, the nervous system, the body. So you have to learn about what's going on with the nervous system and the autonomic nervous
Yeah.
system. So when I came on board, I was like, and basically, I don't really believe that you can truly do the work if you're not really understanding what's going on with the autonomic nervous system in anxiety. Like you've just got to be working on that level. So yeah, 100%. So it's like my personal experience, my professional studying and everything, really felt like this was a great fit.
I was curious with because you meet a lot of people, right? Like
Mhm.
you're basically the one that's deciding if somebody, enrolls or not.
Mhm.
What are some of the common things you see with people? Because I mean, you've been with us for a while now and you've
Yeah.
spoken with so many people. And what are some of the commonalities that you see, or what are some things you see in general on calls?
Yeah, I see. Well, I guess like one of the things I see is like just such, first of all, wonderful people. Like I think we attract the best people into our program. Like so many of the calls I have feel so rewarding for me. Like our people that are focused on our mentorship, because they are all intrinsically motivated. The folks that are drawn into our world are the folks that are like, I've drawn a line in the sand. I've got to get better here. Something's got to give. So we're really, attracting the people that they want to get better, and it's really inspiring. So I have incredibly inspiring calls. But one of the things that I see is that folks are doing everything that they know to do, and they're trying so hard. So I see just so much effort and so much willingness, but they actually just are missing the right education, that they just haven't been able to access maybe the right and when I say the word right, I mean like aligned for them in terms of the productive recovery that they're looking for. But they haven't been able to get, the aligned support from the medical community that they're looking for. They haven't been able to get sort of the aligned support from the therapy world that they're looking for. And a lot of people come and they say, I've gotten great support. Like my doctor is supportive, my therapist has been supportive. I feel okay, but I'm just not sure how to like move through this. So I see people really showing up to the calls with like a ton of willingness, and it's like they're missing a puzzle piece, and it's through no fault of their own trying to get there. And I think that's one of the most important things for people to recognize, is that once things start fitting into place and you know actually what to do and you know the frameworks, that's when things can change. So I think it's really common for folks to feel, if they have a call with us, if they're unsure, is like uncertainty is like the number one thing. Like people just kind of don't know. It's normal to feel unsure. But I see that a lot. It's like a real willingness, but just not quite understanding the issue. So, I mean, it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to get into the neuroscience of it, to get into the sort of the nervous system and stuff on those calls. And I have a lot of aha moments that we share, which is really exciting. And that's really kind of sort of the best part of my job, is when I can help it click for people, and help them see like, oh yeah, it's not that you suck and you're not doing anything right. Like I often say to people, you've done everything you knew how to do. You've absolutely been showing up for yourself. Yet it's not changing because it's just not the correct intervention, but you're here because you kept pushing, you kept trying, and now it's time to just accept that, okay, we've got some options, we've got some solutions here. Let's keep that energy going and get into the most aligned program that can really help you with this. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I see. Yeah, and I also see people that are just really struggling and really desiring to get back to what always comes up on the call, which is normal. It's such a funny word to use, but this is like the number one thing people tell me when I'm like, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve on the other side of recovery? It's never anything big and flashy. It's, I want to feel normal. I want to connect with my friends and family. I want to go to work. I want to just feel normal. And I know what they mean by that. It's like, I want to feel good in my body. I want to just feel like myself. And, sometimes I get people with big dreams. We attract a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals and CEOs and stuff into our program because anxiety does affect high achievers. So, we do get people that are like, I've got these big goals. But for the most part, it's people that are like, I just want to feel normal. I can't tell you how often I hear that word. It's like, that's my goal, normal. And, they don't mean it in a way where it actually isn't big for them. They mean it in the most substantial way for them. It's like, they want to feel okay in their body and just connected to their life again.
Yeah, I always say I realized I was missing the small stuff when I was dealing with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I realized, like, I think one of the greatest things about anxiety was I realized that a lot of like shiny objects that people go for in life, like money or fame or anything like that, like I was like, oh, I don't care about any of that. I thought I did before
Yeah.
I fell into anxiety, and then I was like, no, it's the small things. Like I like waking up and going for a walk. I like drinking coffee. Like I like just enjoying like a sunny day. Like it was small things. Like it was so wild. Or just like sitting in peace. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, like what did I want? I felt like I wasn't able to get out of it. And so like people would be like, what would you do if you got better? And I would literally be like, I just want to chill on my couch.
I want to
Just
sit and
like
not have,
hang out.
yeah, I want to have
Yeah,
not constant chatter in my mind telling me to doubt myself and, this or that.
exactly.
Yeah, just to be able to have
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah, I just want to vibe. Is what I would say. I'm like, I just want to vibe, chill, and like just like and yeah, I see that in people too. But like I also had dreams. Like I just didn't think my dreams would be possible. Like my dream was even back then. I was like, I would love to help people if I could figure this out. If there was a way to figure it out. But like it seems so beyond. I used to feel sad when I used to think that. I was like, oh man, I would love to help people in this, and I'd like feel so sad because I'd be like, I don't even know if I'm gonna get out of this. And it's like, oh man. And so like it felt like the dream felt like I felt like guilt and shame around that dream. And then you got better, then I got better, and then it was like, okay, like just go live your life and pretend this never happened. And then I was like, oh shoot, I really want to do this. And then we did it, and it's wild because it's like whatever your dreams are, I feel like it goes even above and beyond
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
That's such a
Anyways.
good way to put it too. When you're like, it's sort of like when you think about it, you feel sad. because that was the thing,
Yeah.
same thing for me. It wasn't necessarily professional dreams at that point, but it was just like dreams of having connection and friends, relationships. And at the time I was like, I just want a boyfriend and friends and have healthy, normal relationships without all of this, all my drama that I always bring and all of my anxiety, my panic attacks, everything. And it was funny because when I would think about that, I would also feel sad because I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to go from where I'm at now to feeling like stable and happy. And now sometimes I'll just like look around our friend group, or I'll just be like watching TV on the couch with my husband, and I'm like, look what happened. Like, so yeah, but I think that's a really good point, is like it can be hard. Like, and I see that too in people. It's like they want to really focus on that future when I ask them the question, but it hurts so much right now in the moment that it's hard for them to even imagine what life might be like without anxiety. And those are our folks that come to us where they're like, I've been struggling for 5, 10, 15 years. And we do get a lot of folks that are like, this has been going on for so long, I don't remember who I am or what I am without this. We also get folks that have been struggling for just a few months that are very steadfast, like, nope, not happening, got to get out of this. But it's really, we do get a lot of folks that have been struggling for years, and they can hardly even access that. So that's one thing I also do see on the calls, is I really try to help them sink into that sort of like, what if, like, even just to try to taste it a little bit or see any type of what it might be like to not experience this on the other side, and help them remember like that there can be a sense of aliveness and life and connection in their life. And those are really beautiful moments when we can just get a little glimmer. It's really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I always found like with my own journey, it was like, anytime I used to see anything that was like potential for recovery, I'd get really excited. And then
Mm,
after that, I had like done so much of that, and like I'd been like disappointed so many times. Like the fear of being wrong again was
yeah.
bigger than like the potential dream. And so I would like hold my breath. I was like, let me just see first. Like I was always a little bit more, I got more skeptical. And so, yeah, it was hard for me to dream. Like, what would it be like,
Mhm.
like, but,
It becomes
speaking,
more comfortable
yeah,
not, right? Like, just to finish up that point, it's like it becomes easier to stop dreaming because we
yeah.
get so shut down that it becomes easier to just be like, well, this is just, it's easier to just stay here and then it doesn't hurt. And I think that that's one of those things that we do see sometimes too with folks. And I think that can be really beautiful on the calls when we're like, okay, but what if it didn't have to be like that? And what if we can actually help you really start to feel like a possibility mindset? What if we can get a possibility mindset going again? And that's where sometimes even just that little glimmer of hope is exciting. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because I hadn't thought of that at first in terms of what I see. And that is a big thing that we see as well.
And speaking about, people, achieving their dreams and going forward, what's your experience been like seeing people that join the call that end up um, joining the program, their progress, or people that decide not to join the program and come back? Like, what's been your experience in all that?
It's so exciting to see people recover. So to like check in, to like log into the community portal every, now and then, and see the progress that people are making, and to chat with people. And now that I've been around for a while, we've had a lot of graduates, and messages from people where it was like, I was like, trust me, like, if you can't feel it right now, borrow my trust, like, let's go. And I've seen so many people be so unbelievably brave and courageous in taking the leap, in sort of in service of their best self, and in terms of their favorite self, and be feeling well. And then being able to get these messages that I get afterwards, where people are like, okay, well, fair enough, I am feeling much better. Or the milestones, like, okay, well, this is going well, and my spouse is happy, or my parents are happy, or my daughter's happy, or whatever, they're noticing it as well. And just career things that people are telling me, like, I'm back at work and I didn't think that was possible. So being able to celebrate with people now that I've been around for a while is really exciting. And it's also really exciting when people were like, they were skeptical, they took the leap, they bet on themselves, and then they come back and they're like, this was the best investment. I'm so happy I did this. And that is so rewarding. Because you make a good point. Not everyone jumps in right away. And that is okay, because people do have to feel like, it's so important to intrinsically have that motivation and to really be ready to do it in a way. Of course, we're never ready, but we've got to show up for ourselves. So we can't just be expecting other people to do the work for us. So something has to click on internally that this is our recovery and we're taking command of it. And so I have had people where they've just not been in a place, and they come back 2 months later, later, 3 months later, where they say, okay, you know what, I really regret because this is getting worse or this isn't happening. And again, it's my pleasure and privilege to be able to stay in touch, keep in touch with people, and see how people are doing. And we do have quite a few people that come back and they say, okay, I tried some of those techniques you mentioned. It's helping a little, but yeah, I really do need that support, so I'm ready to go. And that's great too. And I think that it's a really lovely experience to be able to go grow with people. I hate to see people continue struggling, but it is amazing to have people come back and say, okay, yeah, like you were right, like it isn't changing, and I'm ready to bet on myself. And so that's really rewarding too. But I think we attract people for the most part that are like ready to, like I said, they draw a line in the sand. Like they're like, let's go, like let's freaking go, because life is short. And so it's really cool when those folks take those brave steps, and then 3 months later, 6 months later, they message me being like, I'm feeling amazing, or it might not be perfect, but all this progress. And that's really exciting too.
Like we have the most qualification for people applying, and the reason why is just because like people need to decide, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the hardest part is to decide, do I want like to get better, and what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times people are like, yeah, I want to get better, but it comes with like constraints, right? They're like, oh,
Right.
but I want to get better this way, I want to get better that way. And I've experienced this too, not even with it, like with anxiety and with outside of anxiety, which is like I don't know which direction to go, and I just go like one foot in, one foot out, and I get into like this paralysis where I don't know what to do. I know I need to do something, and then I get overwhelmed. And then when you get in that overwhelming feeling and you succumb to that, you kind of fall back into the victim mode. And so, you being there and like, helping people think critically about the issue and how to proceed, and highlighting things to themselves that they haven't probably either been honest with themselves, or things that they haven't seen themselves that they didn't realize themselves, and bringing that level of clarity, that just like it's such an important part. And honestly, it sets it up for the rest of their journey, because like once they make that decision, it affects how they show up in the program, and how they show up in the program is one of the biggest aspects
Mm-hmm.
of like succeeding. It doesn't matter how good you make the program, if someone's not fully in it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so that's why you guys are so important. And yeah, it's
Well,
been
and that
awesome
was
to have
true
you
of my
there.
own recovery as well. Like for
Mhm.
years, I really did expect to be fixed, because I had a mentality that there was something broken within me and I was looking for that fix. And so it was like it's everyone else's responsibility. It's like the doctors need to give me the right medication, or my therapist needs to do her job, or all these things. It was externally projecting like someone else needs to fix me. And of course, I did not get better when I was in that place. So through doing the work and going through it over time, when I got to a place where I was like, I am the one that is going to sort of return a balance in the ecology that is me. Like I'm not broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed, but there's something off balance within me, within my nervous system, that I do need to address, and I'm in charge. So when I was able to step into that radical responsibility, things changed. And I think that's really important, that we talk about on our calls. And like you said, it's like we do want to make sure we've got people coming into the program where this is the right fit. Like we've had people be surprised when I say like, with so much love and compassion, this program isn't the right fit for you. They're shocked, and it's like, well, yeah, because actually I suspect you might be struggling with this or this, and I actually recommend you go address maybe something differently, because we want to make sure that we have people coming in where we can absolutely be in integrity with supporting them, providing a great program. And then we know if they're showing up, we're going to have those sort of successes and wins. And I think that's the ethics of it is really important in my job, because I want to make sure that I'm like really setting people up to have like a tremendous experience inside of the program of support and growth. And so yeah, so that it really is cool to be on this side of it, the intake side of it, and be able to really have those conversations and get people excited about what they are capable of. Because truth is, like we're all very capable, and anxiety does immobilize us in many ways. And I like to refer to sort of the victim mentality in that way. Like it's immobilizing, because it's not that we're wrong or broken or bad. It's just that we do get immobilized when we're sensitized in our nervous system and there is stuff going on. So we've got to find something deeper that just lights up in us, where we claim our recovery. And that's like kind of a big part of not only the program, but also it's like ironic. It's like success in the program comes from having that too.
Yeah, I love how you say that. It's like claiming the recovery.
Yeah.
What would you tell somebody that's, watching this video, based on what you've seen, so many people struggling, seeing, what should I do, and seeing people get better, and seeing all these things. What piece of advice would you give somebody?
Yeah, I think this is something that really informs everything that I do in my career as a coach, also here. And everything I do is like, I think it's really important that we really we recognize that there's something that feels wounded. There's like a grief, there's something within us that we have to pause and really give ourselves what I call reverence for the wound. It's like, yeah, it does hurt. It's not fair. And we get a lot of people that come into our program where something happened, or maybe they had an episode where they consumed cannabis or something, and now they have this reaction. So something happened. It's not fair. It does suck. It is disappointing. And I think we have to let ourselves go through a period of like saying to ourselves, yeah, it's not okay. It's not okay this has happened. And when we can do that, when we can give ourselves just a moment to say like, yeah, like I am upset about this, I am angry, then we create space to actually move through it and say, okay, well, now what am I going to do about it? And I think what happens for a lot of people is that they don't give themselves that time or space. This can be 5 minutes. For some people, it's a month. Some people it can be 5 minutes. But we've got to give ourselves a beat to say, like, yeah, I'm upset about this. And let me just be there for a sec. Deep breath. Let's move forward. And if we just try to push it, if we just try to say, like, okay, I've just got to get better, I've just got to get push it, there's a resistance that comes up internally. And that resistance does need to be honored so that we actually create spaciousness to be able to get to solutions. And I think it's really, really important to honor that. The nuance here is that we can't live in that. We can't stay there forever. We can't say it hurts and woe is me and then get immobilized. So it's like, it's such a nuance, but we do need to have those moments of like, okay, let's accept that this sucks. It's like, for me, it was like, it sucks. All my friends are off doing master's degrees and doctorates and getting married and traveling the world and partying and having fun. And I feel stuck in my room. Like, yeah, I do need to take a minute, but also I need to get into action. I need to take responsibility. So it's a real both and. It's like these two things are true at the same time. And if we can acknowledge that, then we create space to actually take action and move forward. And that's what I've actually done on a lot of calls with people, because I'm like, let's just take a minute, feel it, and now what? Right? Like, because you're not wrong. It is annoying that this is happening. And I think that once we create that space, it's a lot easier to take action. So I would say that, but I would also say like we got to take action, and nothing changes until we decide that we get to build more capacity in our system. We get to move forward, and it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it is possible. And that's the other thing too. I often say people are surprised. So I'm like, well, I promise it's going to be hard, but it's possible. People are like, wow, you're really telling me the truth. I'm like, yes, I want to tell you the truth because I think I
No,
might be honest to a fault, but it's like, it's not going to be hard all the time. But if there are hard moments, it's like, accept that and have the ability to move forward with grace and grace for ourselves and just like keep going.
exactly. I mentioned it a lot on the channel and in the program as well. Is like I phrase it a little bit as like responsibility, like the ability to respond. It's like whatever happened to you, it happened, acknowledge it, accept it. Now what? Now what do you do? And sometimes, people can go into the self-loathing, and being the victim feels good
No,
for a
huge
lot of
payoff.
people. The huge pain, it feels really nice. And
Yeah.
so, but the problem is that nothing gets fixed. And, if you become a victim, then someone's a villain.
Hmm.
And, getting out of that and then recognizing, okay, you feel what you feel, now what? And it's always because then it focuses on the proactive nature. And that's
Hmm.
the part of that is recovery. You have to be proactive. It's not like, it doesn't just like come like that to you.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
once you just realize you're falling in that habit, like the first step of anything is awareness, right? So it's just being aware of what's happening and then recognizing, okay, where are these patterns showing up in other aspects? And that's, again, I think that's what's so important about the enrollment process, because like part of it is like helping people decipher that. And then when they realize that, they're like, oh shoot, okay, I do need to join. Or for whatever reason, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
go a
and that's
different
what
route.
we've
So
talked about in every element of our program, and every offering that you have is like we want to create value. And so our program, we have a really high number of people that join. That's amazing, because we make sure that the call is the right fit for people. We make sure it makes sense to be speaking to me. But my goal, and like we talked about, is we want to provide value to everybody on the call. And so there it does happen where we talk to people and they do get value from the call, and even that is a big part of their process. And the mentorship is the call with me actually does provide that first
Huge.
step of mentorship. And that's awesome. And I love that. And so, it's like, it's really important that this whole experience of finding you, of digesting the content, of getting that sort of sense of, oh, maybe this is the right fit for me. Maybe this is the right group of people. And then that whole process of speaking to me or speaking to one of the other enrollment coaches, and then feeling like, okay, yeah, like I can really see my blind spots. I can see what I need. I see that puzzle piece, and then be able to really feel like they've got a pathway that it actually feels really empowering, and not just for them, but for the whole family. Because one of the things we also talk about too is like it affects the relationship, it affects the family. And that's why we often ask for those people to be on the call as well. Who else is involved? Because we know that if it's just you, living alone in your house, maybe it's just you. But if you're living with other people, if you are doing life with anybody else, they are involved in like the
Yeah,
anxiety. And I speak to a lot of spouses where I ask them like, how do you feel? Or parents, or partners, whatever. And people often share their experiences, like they feel so frustrated and they don't know what to do. And so it's my hope is that the call actually really helps not just the person coming into the program, but also the person that's supporting them in making the decision. And that it actually is a really big part of the mentorship is the process of getting into the mentorship really sets them up to have that experience that's really positive.
that's fantastic.
Mhm.
Robyn, thank you so much for coming on this channel.
Yeah.
We'll leave it here for everybody. I'll put a link down below. It'll be in the description box and the comment section if you want to apply. And chances are you'll most likely be talking to Robyn.
Yeah.
If that's the
Awesome,
case,
everybody. I look forward to meeting you on our application call. And for people watching this, if you're feeling on the fence, just book the call. Let's just chat. My goal is to help you. And yeah, this is a great program. So, yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much, Robyn, and thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.